Every enthusiast knows the legends. Engines like Toyota's insanely capable JZ series, Nissan's race-bred RBs, or Mazda's brap-brap flame-spitting rotaries. But what about those golden-era engines that quietly slipped under the radar? The ones that never got the spotlight they absolutely deserved. Today, we're diving into 5 underrated engines from the 90s and early 2000s that deserve a second look. Engines that aren't just about raw horsepower, but about the character, the quirks, and the unforgettable driving experiences they bring. Plus, each of these engines can be found in some pretty cool and affordable cars that just might catch your eye. First up, the Volvo B5244T3, a smooth yet potent 2.4-liter turbocharged version of Volvo's iconic 5-cylinder engines. And I've got a soft spot for this 200 horsepower variant, thanks to its torque delivery. We're talking 285 Newton-meters of torque from as low as 1800 RPM, all the way to 5000 RPM, with peak power hitting at 6000 RPM, meaning you've got power throughout the entire rev range. The secret? It's all in that undersquare design. An 83mm bore paired with a hefty 90mm stroke, plus a variable exhaust cam. What that gives you is power across the entire rev range. It's quite impressive for late 90s technology. But it's not just the numbers, it's the experience. The smoothness, the unique growl of a 5-cylinder, and let's not forget, bulletproof reliability. Treat it to basic maintenance, and this engine will practically run forever. And as a cherry on top, it's surprisingly fuel efficient for what it is. You'll find this gem under the hood of the early 2000s Volvo S80, S60, V70, and V70XC. Sure, it's a transverse layout with mostly front-wheel drive, but if you can live with that, you've got yourself an unbeatable daily driver that'll outlast and probably outperform most modern cars. Now let's talk about an engine you probably forgot even existed, the Mazda K8, a 1.8-liter, 24-valve, double-overhead cam V6. That's right, a 1.8-liter V6, one of the smallest of its kind. So why do I consider it underrated? Simple, it's fun, an absolute riot to drive. This little gem is over-square, with a bore and stroke of 75mm by 69.9mm, meaning it's built to rev, and trust me, it sounds like a racing engine. There's just something exhilarating about the sound of a small displacement, multi-cylinder engine screaming to the red line. Sure, it's got only 136 horsepower and 156 Newton-meters of torque, but that's part of its charm. It gives you the perfect excuse to ring it out at every opportunity and feel like a racing driver, without getting into too much trouble with the speed limits. Fuel efficiency? Not exactly stellar for a 1.8, but who cares when it's this much fun? Plus, it's bulletproof, easily capable of 500,000 kilometers without much fuss. You'll mostly find it in the Mazda MX-3 and the JDM-only Mazda Unos 500. Those were the days when Mazda was still all about making truly fun, engaging cars. Next up, we've got the BMW M42. Sure, it's pretty well known, but in my opinion, still a bit underrated. This engine found its home in only 2 models, the E30 and the E36. And yeah, people often swap it out for a 6-cylinder, since it's one of the easiest swaps in the book. But here's the thing, what they're missing is that the M42 on its own is a fantastic engine with just a hint of motorsport heritage. In the E36, it's positioned slightly behind the front axle, which means you're essentially driving a front mid-engined car. That's exactly why BMW ran a 4-cylinder E36 320i in the German Supertourenwagen Cup, with the race-tuned S42 version cranking out 315 horsepower. And the best part? You can almost replicate that racing engine with just bolt-ons. Even in its stock form, the M42 isn't exactly slow. With 140 horsepower and 175 Newton-meters of torque, it was pretty impressive for a 1.8 back in the 90s. If you're someone who values handling, balance, and going flat out over sheer horsepower, then the M42 might just be your kind of engine. Now, I'm about to reveal to you a true German 2JZ, an engine that might actually surpass that legendary Japanese powerhouse in sheer performance potential. Enter the Mercedes 3.2-liter M104. Even in its stock form, it's silky smooth, rock-solid reliable, and delivers some impressive performance. But the real magic? The potential of this engine is downright insane. With just a bolt-on turbo kit and a few internal upgrades, like swapping out the conrods, this engine can pump out over 1,000 horsepower, revving up to 9,000 RPM. And here's the kicker. It'll do it all day, every day without breaking a sweat. This thing is built with the highest quality materials and is just as over-engineered as the 2JZ. In fact, it's practically identical in design, except it costs a fraction of what you'd pay for a 2JZ and is way more abundant. You can grab a 1,000+ horsepower bolt-on tuning kit for this engine, and from there, it's just a matter of building and tuning. It's still one of the cheapest and most reliable ways to hit 4-digit horsepower. The downside? You've got to actually build it and find a good tuner. But honestly, it's no more challenging than building any other high-performance engine. So why isn't it as popular in the high horsepower scene? Simple. It's mostly found in cars that don't exactly scream driver's car, like the Mercedes W24 E320, W210 E320, W140 S320, R129 SL320, and W463 G320. Fun fact, in the S-Class and SL Class, you could even get it paired with a dogleg manual gearbox, turning it into a surprisingly engaging driver's car. Alright, I saved my personal favorite for last, an absolute peach of an engine. I'm talking about the supercharged Mercedes M111. Now, the M111 came in a bunch of variants, but here, we're focusing on the pinnacle, the 2.3-liter Evo compressor. This thing pumps out 197 horsepower and 280 newton-meters of torque, with that peak torque kicking in at just 2,500 RPM and sticking around until 4,800 RPM. What makes this engine special? It's all about that instant torque. Thanks to the supercharger, you've got power on tap at basically any RPM. It feels quicker than its nearly 200 horsepower would suggest, pulling hard from as low as 2,000 RPM all the way to the limiter. It's an absolute joy to drive. While naturally aspirated engines need to be revved out or turbos have that lag before they spool up, the supercharged M111, it's instant. Perfect for real-world driving, like when you need to shoot through a gap in traffic with just a half-second throttle blip. You don't even need to bury the pedal to get it moving, so it can actually be driven quite efficiently. Think of it like this. You get the efficiency, size, and simplicity of a 4-cylinder, but with the power of a finely tuned 6. And the sound? Oh, it's glorious. That signature supercharger whine is perfectly complemented by the deep, resonant growl of its wide 90.9mm bore cylinders. The result is a symphony of mechanical excellence, pure music to any car enthusiast's ears. The latest Evo version came with some serious upgrades, a reinforced block, better flowing head, special piston coatings, and sodium-filled valves, features usually reserved for AMG engines back in the day. All these enhancements make it rock solid. You can beat on it all day, and it won't miss a beat. The real magic of this engine is hard to put into words. It's an experience you just have to feel for yourself. The drivability, the instant response, the sound, it's all there. And that's why it's one of my favorites. It's got virtually no downsides and is an absolute blast to drive. So why isn't it more popular? Maybe because it was only offered in a handful of models. The Mercedes C230 compressor, CLK 230 compressor, and the SLK 230 compressor. But if you can get your hands on one with the 6-speed manual gearbox, you're in for a truly special driving experience. It's an overlooked masterpiece that deserves far more appreciation. Engines like these are a testament to an era when cars had soul, machines built with character and purpose. It's a journey we love to take together, exploring the forgotten and underrated gems. But hey, what do you think? Have any stories or experiences with these engines, or maybe your own list of underrated power plants that deserve more recognition? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, keep the spirit of driving alive.